Hello, Falcons. I'm back with A Boy Called Bat, written by Alana K. Arnold and illustrated by Charles Santoso and published by the Walden Pond Press. We will be reading chapters 23 and chapter 4 today. Chapter 23, Windows. Some days, Bat was the first person awake. It didn't happen often because Mom was a morning person. Usually when Bat woke up, he went straight into the kitchen to find Mom sitting at the table with a cup of coffee and a book. But every now and then, Bat awoke to a completely quiet house, a sleeping house. Tuesday was one of those mornings. Bat woke up suddenly and completely to a still dark sky outside his window. He blinked and sat up, slipped his feet into slippers, took the skunk sling from the doorknob where he'd hung it the night before, and went into the living room. The living room windows faced the front yard. Bat could make out the shape of the big oak tree on the lawn. It was a darker shadow against the velvety early morning sky. He went straight to Thor's enclosure and found the kit tucked in his sleeping corner, surrounded by the rice-filled socks that made a nice padded nook. He stroked Thor's back, feeling the rise and fall of his sleeping breaths, before gently scooping him up. Thor let out a little high-pitched yawning sound, his tiny paws swimming through the air as Bat settled him into the sling. Once inside, Thor rustled around for a moment before quieting back down. In the kitchen, Bat opened the refrigerator as quietly as he could and retrieved the formula. He filled the syringe and held it under a stream of hot water to warm it up. Thor could smell the formula. Bat could tell because he wiggled around in his pouch. "It's coming, little guy," Bat said. When the formula was warm, he went back into the living room and curled up on a window bench. Already the sky was changing. It was still dark, but now Bat could make out the branches of the tree. He heard the very earliest morning birds, the ones that sang each day as the sky began to lighten. Gently, Bat reached into the pouch and pulled out the skunk kit. It was too dark to see clearly, but Bat didn't want to startle him by turning on a lamp. So he brought the syringe down to Thor's face and let the skunk find the tiny tip by smell. As Thor had his breakfast, the sky turned violet and pink, then orangey red. The tree's trunk lightened from black to brown and its leaves transformed to green. The first birds called louder, waking up their friends, and they became a chorus of song. Bat looked down to see if Thor had finished his formula and gasped in surprise. The two tight slits that had been closed since Mom first brought him home were open. Bat could see Thor's eyes. They were the darkest black Bat had ever seen. "Hey there," Bat cooed down at Thor. "Good morning, little kid." Thor kept looking at the tip of the syringe, but his quick pink tongue hesitated just a bit when Bat spoke. Maybe he was listening. Maybe he understood. Bat stroked back the soft black and white fuzz on Thor's little forehead. "I see you," he said. "Do you see me?" Mom emerged from her bedroom, tying the belt of her bathrobe. "Bat," she said, "you're up early." "Mom," Bat said, "look, Thor's eyes are open." Mom came over to see. "Look at that," she said, resting her hand on the top of Bat's head and petting his hair just as Bat had stroked Thor. "His eyes are beautiful, Mom," Bat said. "Don't you think his eyes are beautiful?" Mom sat down on the window seat next to Bat. "I think that's the first time I've ever heard you mention someone's eyes," she said. "Most eyes are boring," Bat said. "But Thor's are amazing. Look. They are the color of outer space. They're open." "Bat," Mom said, "what color are my eyes?" "Brown," Bat answered, still staring at the skunk kit. Droplets of formula hung from the little black and white hairs all around his mouth. "Nope," said Mom. "They're hazel." This got Bat's attention. "Really?" He looked up and stared at Mom's face. Her eyes were golden brown with little flecks of green and yellow in them. "They look like marbles," Bat said. "I never noticed." "Well, you never have been all that interested in people's eyes." Bat shrugged. I never thought about it, he said. Some people say that you can tell a lot about a person by looking into their eyes, Mom said. What do you think about that? Bat thought about it. I don't get it, he said. If I want to know something about a person, I ask. I think you can tell more about people from what they say than from their eyes. Said Mom. You have an interesting way of seeing the world, Bat. Bat stared deep into Thor's space black eyes. He tried to see what he could learn from them. He looked first into the left eye, and then into the right, and then into the left again. It's hard to look into two eyes at the same time, he said. Which one am I supposed to look in? I don't think it matters. Try looking into my eyes, Mom said, and see what you can learn about me. Here's a picture of Thor being fed. Bat tucked Thor back into the pouch. Mom took the syringe and set it down. She took Bat's hands into hers and smiled at him. Bat smiled back, and then he tried to see what Mom's eyes could tell him. The left eye had 3 more flecks of green than the right eye. The right eye had 1 more fleck of yellow. The black points in the middle were exactly the same size, and her eyes were shiny. Hazel is cool, Bat said. It's like a rainbow of all the boring colors. Funny, Bat, Mom said. Do you know what I see when I look into your eyes? Brown and black, Bat said, with all the white around. Yes, said Mom, I do see that. But I also see your sweetness and your thoughtful nature and your busy, busy mind. Here they are, Mom and Bat, gazing into each other's eyes. Bat looked away. It was uncomfortable to let anyone look into his eyes for too long. It made him feel kind of itchy and shy. You can tell all that by looking in my eyes? Yes, she said. She leaned forward and kissed Bat's forehead. I see all of that and more. All right, chapter 24. A reply. Bat, said Mr. Grayson as the students filed into the classroom, you got an email from Dr. Jerry Dragoo. He wrote back? Bat said, his heart beating faster. There were only a few days left until Thor was supposed to go to the rescue center, and he had almost given up hope. What did he say? You can read it at recess, said Mr. Grayson. It's a nice email. I want to read it now. All the other kids were at their desks, but Bat was still standing in the aisle. He felt his hands pull up tight against his sides the way they did when he was excited. At recess, Bat, said Mr. Grayson. Bat hated waiting. He hated waiting. It was stupid to wait for something if there was no good reason that it couldn't happen now. Who cared if class started a few minutes late if it meant that he could read his email? A real-life skunk expert had written to him. That was certainly more important than anything Mr. Grayson had planned right now. Had a real-life skunk expert ever written to Mr. Grayson? Almost certainly not. Mr. Grayson, I think you should let me read my email now, Bat said. Bat, Mr. Grayson answered, sometimes we have to wait. It's good to practice. It's good practice to delay gratification. Bat didn't really know what Mr. Grayson meant by that, but he knew it meant that Mr. Grayson wasn't going to let him read the email right now. He wanted to insist, and he would insist if he thought he could change Mr. Grayson's mind. But Mr. Grayson looked serious, so Bat reluctantly went to his seat. Too bad, said Israel, putting down the book he had been reading. Don't make fun of me, Bat yelled. Whoa, dude, Israel said. I wasn't making fun of you. Bat, said Mr. Grayson, coming over to his desk. What on earth is the matter? Israel was making fun of me, Bat said. I was not, said Israel. I just said it's too bad Bat can't read his email right now. You don't really think it's too bad, Bat said. He kept his eyes on the surface of his desk, running his gaze over the wood grain. You don't know what I think, Bat, said Israel. You don't know everything. Bat, said Mr. Grayson, putting his hand on Bat's shoulder. The weight of his hand felt good. It helped Bat to feel like he was sitting in his seat, like he wasn't going to fly away. Try to give Israel the benefit of the doubt, okay? If he says he was being sincere, believe him. Bat nodded, but he didn't look up. Israel went back to his book. For what it's worth, Bat, said Mr. Grayson in a quieter voice, I think Israel was being kind. I think he'd like to be your friend." Then Mr. Grayson took his hand off Bat's shoulder and returned to the front of the room. Now Bat wasn't just thinking about the email from Dr. Jerry DeGrew. He was also thinking about whether Israel wanted to be his friend. He thought about how Israel had asked him if he wanted to play Foursquare, and how he had said hello outside of the sugar shack. Then he thought about the other kids in class looking at him right now, and he thought about Thor's eyes, and he thought about the windy day outside. It was too much to think about all at once, and his skin began to feel prickly and too tight. But he couldn't take off his skin, so instead he reached into his backpack for his earmuffs and slipped them on. The classroom noise around him faded, and Bat's skin calmed down. Bat looked at the clock above the classroom door. It was 8:55. Recess was at 10:15. That was exactly 1 hour and 20 minutes away. He could wait that long. He didn't like it, but he could do it. Did you notice Israel, or not Israel, but did you see how Bat used the tools that he had been taught and the tools that he had been given to help himself calm down? Mrs. Gillespie would be very proud of Bat right now. Time was a funny thing. Sometimes an hour and 20 minutes, didn't feel very long at all, like when Bat was watching YouTube videos about animals. And sometimes, like when Dad was watching baseball on TV, an hour and 20 minutes felt like 20 years. But that day, the hour and 20 minutes between 8:55 and 10:15 felt like 20 baseball games. At last, Mr. Grayson said, "Okay, gang, go play." The kids shoved back their chairs and headed for the door. Bat pulled off his earmuffs and went to Mr. Grayson's desk. "It's recess," he said. "Yes, Bat, it sure is," said Mr. Grayson, and he opened his laptop. "Can I read the email too?" Israel asked. He hadn't gone outside with the other kids. "Why?" asked Bat. "Because I'm curious. You've been talking about Dr. Jerry DeGrew nonstop." That wasn't true, was it? Well, maybe it was true. "Okay," said Bat, "but no making fun." "I wasn't making fun before," Israel said, "and I won't now." "Here you go, gentlemen," Mr. Grayson said. He clicked on the top message in his inbox. The subject line was question about a baby skunk. Then he stood up so that Bat could have his chair. "When you're done reading your email, just close the laptop and come join us outside," he said. Then he headed out to the playground. Bat sat down. He could feel Israel standing behind him, reading over his shoulder. The email read, "Dear Bat, I am very interested in skunks, as you know. I can tell that you feel very attached to the kit, and I don't blame you. Baby skunks are adorable. But the question of whether you should keep him as a pet is a complicated one, even if your mom feels reasonably sure that he is disease-free. All pets require a huge commitment of time, energy, and usually money. Skunks are no different. In fact, keeping a skunk as a pet is much more challenging than keeping a dog or a cat. Skunks are not pets by nature. They are wild animals. And from my many years of experience, I can tell you that most people don't know what they are getting into. It's very easy to fall in love with a baby skunk, but it's difficult to be truly a good caretaker to a skunk. Most people would be better off with a dog. Still, this skunk kit has come into your life, and for at least the next few weeks, you and your mother must work to be the best caretakers you can be. Should you keep the kit? Should you give him to the rescue people? I don't know the answer because I don't know you and I don't know your kit. But it sounds like, for now, the kit is right where it needs to be, and I trust that you will take good care of it. Sincerely, Jerry DeGrew, Ph.D., DeGrew Institute for Betterment of Skunks and Skunk Reputation. And here's Bat in Israel reading the email. Well, I think that was a very nice letter. That's too bad, said Israel. What's too bad, asked Bat. That the skunk guy doesn't think you should keep the kit. That's not what he said Bat. Well, he didn't say he'd tell your mom to keep him. He didn't say that skunks make good pets. That's true, said Bat. But he didn't say we shouldn't keep Thor either. He said that a good caretaker makes a good pet. So all I have to do is be the best caretaker in the world and convince my mom to let me keep raising him. I can do that. Bat closed Mr. Grayson's laptop, absolutely determined to become the very best caretaker that a skunk had ever had. Can I come over sometime? Israel asked. Why? Said Bat. I don't know, said Israel, to hang out and maybe meet Thor. It's okay with me, Bat answered. I'll have to ask my mom. And that is the end of chapter 24. We have chapter 25, chapter 26, and then we're done. So tomorrow we will be concluding A Boy Called Bat. And then I think Thursday I will start a new book, To Be Determined. Till the next time, boys and girls.